It's a beautiful morning here in Australia for the weekend preview here at Albert Park. Welcome along back down under. Hello everybody and welcome to your weekend preview for the 2023 Australian Grand Prix. We're back down under here in Australia and the first part of the drivers' press conference is about to come up. Now, we're not live. The press conference took part some hours ago as well, but it was the middle of the night here in the UK. And with the massive amount of schedule change we've got this weekend covering F1, F2, F3, Moto 2, Moto 3 and MotoGP, all literally at opposite ends of the day for us. It's decided that we will show this in a more respectable time. Morning to Dimas says, do you know F2 and F3 to race at Albert Park? Of course I know. Of course, don't worry about it. It's because I'm having to suffer staying up earlier than ever for that. But it's going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait. Hopefully you'll be with us as well, Dimas, as well, throughout the weekend, taking a look at things. But let's get started with the drivers' press conference. And let's hear from Tom Clarkson.
Welcome to the drivers' press conference ahead of the FIA Formula One Australian Grand Prix. As ever, we have two groups of 5 coming your way, and first up we have Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Zhou Guanyu, Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc. Very warm welcome to you all. I think we should start with the hometown hero.
Yeah, it was a nice confidence boost. Sunday, obviously nice to see the end at least. But yeah, you know, I think the first lap I probably could have done a few things differently and, you know, maybe kept myself out of trouble a bit better. But I think the rest of the race, you know, it was nice to get a race distance under my belt at least, and definitely some learning and getting rid of some of the rust still.
Record crowd coming this weekend, 140,000 people coming on Sunday. They're going to be cheering you on, many of them. What can they expect from you and McLaren?
We'll try our best, obviously. You know, I think compared to the previous two tracks, here should be more like Saudi, I hope. The tarmac's quite similar. The layout is a bit more similar to Saudi compared to Bahrain, so hopefully that is good for us. But yeah, I think, you know, Saudi we we showed we can get into Q3 and fight for the back end of points on our good days. So hopefully we can just have a clean race and my front wing doesn't wipe out Lando this time. And we'll see what we can do.
All right, best of luck. Thank you, Oscar. Charles, we'll come to you next. Now, a year ago, you dominated this race, winning by 20 seconds. It was a great moment for you and for the team. Can we start just by reflecting on 12 months ago?
Yeah, good memories. But already looking for this year, we are not coming into this race in the same situation as we were last year. I think clearly our performance is not as good as last year. But we are working massively to try and come back at the front. Last year are good memories, as we can see on the images now. Everybody was really happy, but again, we are fully motivated to be back in the front. We know where we need to work on. I don't think there will be any miracles for this weekend, but after that we've got 3 weeks break and we'll try to use it in the best way possible in order to bring upgrades as quickly as possible on the car.
But does the current car have any of the same qualities that made you so competitive 12 months ago?
I don't know. At the end, it's a relative sport. So yes, it's an evolution from last year's car, but clearly it's not enough when you look at where Red Bull is, especially in race pace. So we've got lots of work to do.
Oscar says he hopes that this track is quite like Jeddah, the tarmac is quite similar. Given that you were only 1.5 tenths, I think it was, off pole position in Jeddah, does that give you some confidence coming here?
I think that in qualifying we've been quite good since the beginning of the season. Where we need to focus on is the race, where our car is extremely picky. When all the conditions are right, we seem to be able to extract the performance out of our package. But whenever the conditions are changing a little bit with a heavier car, where you see a little bit more the limitations of the car, then that's where we struggle. So we are trying to focus on that. I do believe that we'll be quite close in qualifying. I hope so. But I think that the picture in the race will be quite similar.
And do you think the 4th DRS zone that we're going to have this weekend will help or hinder you?
I don't think it will change much.
Okay. Charles, best of luck to you. Thank you. Joe, let's come to you now. You enjoyed your first trip to Melbourne last year. What have you been getting up to since you arrived this time?
Yeah, obviously last year was actually quite good until the last lap where Alex was using the same set and pit the last lap of the race. But yeah, apart from that, I really like just firstly the crowd and the atmosphere here. And we see a lot of people, or a lot of people from my country at least, is living here or study here. So it's great to have kind of a semi, home support in a way. And apart from that, I've just been not doing much, just try to get rid of my jet lag. Everything's been going well, get the preparation done for the race weekend ahead.
You've done a lot of racing against Oscar in the junior formulas. Has he given you any places you need to visit or any suggestions?
Well, I hope he does after this, but not so much before that. But it's nice actually to see like other category coming to here, because when we was racing together, we normally don't get to see all these places like here, going abroad and away from Europe. So yeah, overall, I really like, in general, the culture here, and also my teammate, has a big influence with this Australia thing with his haircut, all that. So I get more from Voucher than Oscar, that's for sure.
It's true. Did you see what he turned up in today?
Yeah, I tried to not look it. Honestly, it was not my thing. I don't know if some of you guys see it, but it's quite crazy.
Yeah, it was. Now, it's a long flight here, so you've had plenty of time to reflect on the performance of your car, in particular, in the opening 2 races. Where do you think Alfa Romeo are at the minute?
I mean, it's very similar to, let's say, where they are with the McLarens. I think we are just fighting for the, back foot of the points. It's clear, there's 3-4 teams is clearly ahead of the rest, but then I think from, just PA downwards is very tight. Everybody can be, grabbing these final points finishes, which, is the aim or the target, realistic way for now. And I feel like, Jeddah, we was really close in Q3, also the race pace running, top 10 most of the race before the pit stop, and then put us into a more trickier window. So I think we can still fight for it, and we are not, too far away from this. So it's just the little details can really make the difference in the midfield.
All right, best of luck to you. Thank you, Joe. Fernando, coming to you, only the 6th driver in history to reach 100 podiums. We get to talk to you about it now because we couldn't do it after the race in Jeddah. Just tell us, what does that landmark mean to you now that you've had a bit of time to reflect on it too?
Well, obviously it feels good. Feels nice to reach that number, but yeah, obviously when you are in a championship, you are not really concentrated on that. You are just thinking on the next weekend, as we did after Jeddah, and here we are in Melbourne, and hopefully we have a strong weekend again.
Can we throw it back to Jeddah just one more time? I want to talk to you about the grid penalty.
Yep.
How difficult is it to see your grid box in these cars?
It is difficult, and yeah, apparently this year it seems even more, because in 2 races to have 2 penalties is a little bit strange. But yeah, I mean, my case, it didn't change much from last year. Yeah, it is difficult, and we are very concentrated on the yellow line to don't go too far forward. So you approach the box, let's say, not looking at the box, you are looking on one side of the cockpit. So maybe that's a little bit of a distraction, but yeah, I made a mistake there, so we will try to be more focused on the box this weekend and avoid any penalty.
Well, and the box is going to be 20 centimetres wider this weekend. I think there's going to be a central line as well. Will that help?
The central line, I don't think so, because as I said, you approach the box looking sideways, so you are not looking forward. So that's the biggest difficulty. But the 20 centimeters will help, I guess. It's going to be some circuits, maybe Monaco or Imola, that you start a little bit sideways anyway, because if not, you crash if you start just straight. So we will have to see how we apply, the penalties and things like that in those races. But yeah, no one wants to get a penalty for the start. Also, I think the FIA doesn't want to have any problem on that, because there is not performance advantage as long as you don't go too forward. So yeah, hopefully we avoid anything from now on.
Now, Fernando, the car was quick in Bahrain. It was quick in Saudi. Have you seen enough to know that you're going to be quick everywhere this year?
Not yet. I think we have to wait and see. Also, I think very soon from Baku or Imola, we will see the teams changing few parts in the cars, and maybe that changes also the how competitive you feel. So let's wait and see. At the moment, we are extremely happy with the performance of the car. Obviously, it was better than expected, especially in Jeddah. I think it was a nice surprise. So yeah, we arrive here with a good level of confidence. But as I said, after a few events from now on, I think the cars will change a lot, in few areas and few developments. So let's see if we can keep this pace.
All right, best of luck to you. Max, thanks for waiting. Coming to you now, and given your recent dominance in Formula One, it seems crazy that you've only finished on the podium once here in Melbourne back in 2019. Do you like the track?
Yeah, I mean, of course it was a bit different back then. But yeah, this track, I think, is just because the last few years, we've never really been that good in the beginning of the year. So I think if this race would have been different plays on the calendar, then probably would have had a lot better results here. But that's not how it is. But yeah, for sure we do need a bit of a good result here.
Well, how confident are you coming into the weekend?
Yeah, I think we have a good chance, of course, for a good result. But we do need to execute a good weekend yet.
All right, Max, thank you. Best of luck to you. Let's open this up to the floor now. Who's got our first question, please?
Thank you very much. David Croft, Sky Sports F1. A question to Max and to Charles, really, because the fortunes for both of you couldn't really be more contrasting since you came here 12 months ago. So, Max, in your case, what's gone right? And Charles, sadly for you, what's gone wrong? We'll start with Max first.
I think last year our car was very heavily overweight at this stage of the season, so that didn't help. I think last year here we had a big shift in balance between qualifying and the race, so that caught us out in the race. And yeah, we were not reliable, so that of course is never nice in the beginning of the year. But we also knew that there was a lot of potential in that car, just from the updates, but especially from the weight side of the car. But yeah, last year was very frustrating here, being slow in the race, retiring from the race. But I think we also understood quite quickly after the weekend what we did wrong, of course, with the setup, but also we had to work on our reliability, because I think from then onwards it was quite all right in terms of reliability, and of course we made big steps with the performance of the car.
Thank you. Charles?
Well, I think you can take Max's comments and turn them around, and then it's kind of an explanation for us. I think the first three races went quite well. Red Bull was a little bit on back foot reliability-wise, and also in performance we were good. Then we had a time where there were just too many mistakes, and there we lost quite a bit of points. And then for the second half of the season, we were just not competitive enough. So yeah, but we know the story about last year. Now it's all about focusing on what we can do better to improve and to come back to their level. And yeah, as I said before, we know where we need to work on, and now we just need to make it happen.
Can I ask where that is? Where do you...
So we wait.
Honestly, it's just to try and have a more solid car in all the conditions that we are. Is it working?
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, is it? Yeah, just because we seem to be quite good in terms of qualifying whenever the peak grip is there, but then whenever we lose a little bit of grip in the race, then it starts to be very, very difficult, and we seem to lose quite a lot of performance. So on that we need to work.
So as we wait then as well, you can just see Max Verstappen there in that beautiful blonde wig he had on over the previous couple of days. So Fernando Alonso also been saying that if Max Verstappen has the number 1 again next year, he's going to ask for the number 33. So it's a very nice number. So yeah, that's certainly going to be a feature of interest as well as we go forward. But what an absolute fantastic opener we've had in the previous 2 races. They haven't really been in terms of great racing, but they certainly have been great in terms of the political aspect of Formula 1. In the opening round in Bahrain, Red Bull was the domination, but it was Aston Martin that had the main score. Then in Saudi Arabia, once again, all eyes are on Red Bull with Max Verstappen's problem. He started 15th on the grid and had to come back through the field. Finished second, but then there was the political about the... then it was political all the way around as well in terms of, I've gone for the fastest lap, why haven't you gone for the fastest lap sort of thing that was happening. Now we come here to Australia, and we've got a very wet weekend in store. The forecast shows that we're going to have a wet practice, very wet qualifying, might have a bit of few suspensions with the red flags in it as well. But we've got a very interesting weekend coming up where this is a track with 4 DRS zones now. Red Bull aren't going to be as quick. I reckon Aston Martin are going to be right up there, but I still think Max Verstappen's going to win. It's kind of the thing that we're all expecting coming into this weekend. Dio Nat says, glad to hear your voice is on the mend. Yes, thank you. I had COVID 2 weeks ago, didn't I, in Saudi Arabia, and I was isolating the Monday after the race for a whole week, and it was horrible. Felt better last weekend, and this weekend feeling very much shipshape, but it's still taking a bit more time, I would say, to get fully effect. I've started going back to the gym. Started at the gym. My friend who runs it as well, helping me out, making sure I don't have any risks of long COVID, which is why my arms are really hurting. I can just about straighten my arm as well, both of them. The left one's the worst though, because that's my non-dominant hand, so it works less. But yeah, it's pretty much how we've been having it. And yeah, just getting better. In fact, I'm at the gym in around about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours time for the next one. So, just a reminder about we'll hear from the second lot of the drivers in the press conference shortly. Just a reminder, we will be live for all of the practice sessions and qualifying in the race here for the watch-alongs on YouTube. We've also got highlights of all the practice sessions for Formula 3, Formula 2 and MotoGP. We'll be live with MotoGP for qualifying, sprint and race. We'll also be live for the Formula 3 and Formula 2 sprint and feature races, and we'll also be live for the IndyCar race at Texas. Myself, Tom Dillon and Josh Blaze will be in the commentary box for that one. Tom will be taking over leading commentary just after the green flag, as well as I've got to go cover MotoGP. So we're sort of halving that, and it's the same I think next weekend when we are at, or 2 weeks time rather, when we are at Long Beach as well with some of those matters. But it's looking good. just a quick thing as well I want to talk about as well. I've got 30 seconds. The news came out this morning that the FIA have banned the teams from climbing the fences to take the checker flag and do all the driver celebrations. That is not the case. They've been reminded it's not allowed, but they haven't been banned and there's no clampdown on it, so nothing's going to change in that regard. Also, Michael Masi back in the paddock this weekend. He, of course, is the supervising chairman for the V8 Supercar Championship, so there's a lot of drama there. We'll get into that in practice. Let's head back then over to Sky Sports F1 and to Tom Clarkson for the second half of the press conference.
Welcome back to Melbourne, everybody, for part 2 of our drivers' press conference. As you can see, we have Logan Sargent, Nico Hulkenberg, Nick De Vries, Pierre Gasly, and George Russell. Why don't we start at the far end this time? George, the man who finished 3rd here last year and thought he'd finished 3rd in Saudi, of course, 2 weeks ago, but you ended up 4th. Look, what was your reaction to Fernando getting that 3rd place back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was the right decision. It was just a bit of a shame what a mess it was for everybody else included. I think, from my side and our side, we didn't feel like we deserved to finish 3rd position, but obviously it's quite a nice feeling when it's handed to you. And then when it's obviously taken away from you again, it was just all a bit silly. Fernando was actually the first person to tell me that I'd lost the position, because I bumped into him at the airport, so he clearly had some insider info. But yeah, congrats to him. He was a deserving P3 finisher.
Well, George, you say you think you didn't deserve to finish 3rd, but do you feel you maximised the potential of the car last week?
Yeah, to be honest, I felt like Saudi was probably one of my strongest weekends I've ever had with Mercedes from qualifying. Really pleased with how that went. The race felt really strong. And P4 was, I think, the absolute maximum we could have achieved. I think the Ferraris were probably a little bit faster on us that weekend. We also had Stroll, who obviously had the failure, but he was right behind us. So, yeah, P4 was a good result.
George, a lot has been written and spoken about the W14. Not all of it complimentary, it has to be said. Are things as bad as some people want us to believe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't read what's being said in the news all of the time, but we're here to win. We're here to fight for victories for the championship, and clearly we're not in a position to do that at the moment. But big changes are incoming. There's nothing that you'll see on the car this weekend, because naturally you can't get things brought that quickly to the car. But I think in due course we'll see some big changes, and hopefully the lap times represent that.
Have you been able to try the changes on the simulator back in Brackley?
Yeah, I mean, we're working really hard at the moment with these changes, so I won't give too much away. And we need to make sure that they work as expected. But yeah, as we've said a number of times, we're probably finding more gains in the past 2 or 3 weeks than we found over the whole winter by clearly developing in the wrong window. So yeah, it's definitely heading in the right direction.
Brilliant. And George, just a quick word on this weekend. What's possible?
I mean, if we manage to get another P4 or fight for the podium, that will probably be exceeding the potential of the car. I think Aston are going to be really strong here. They seem to be the quickest car in medium speed corners, which obviously there's plenty of them here in Melbourne. So if we can fight with Aston and Ferrari again, that'll be a good weekend.
All right. Best of luck with that. Thank you. Pierre, let's come to you now. Clearly a man who's enjoying being back in Melbourne. What have you been up to? Surfing, golf, supercars? Have I missed anything?
Shopping.
Yeah, actually.
Shopping?
Yeah. Actually, it's been a pretty busy last couple of days, but I will say, highlights driving a V8 supercar was pretty cool. That was definitely a very enjoyable experience. It was only a few laps. We got a bit of drifting in as well yesterday, so the team kept us busy, but yeah, very enjoyable so far.
Having a good time. Look, and in terms of performance, it's been 2 9th places for you so far this year. Are you pleased with your progress at Alpine?
Well, I will not say that I'm pleased, because we obviously want to fight higher up the grid, and it felt like so far we're a bit in a no man's land behind the top 4 teams. Had a bit of that midfield behind us, even though it's really close, but we're still chasing and trying to get closer to that front runners. It's obviously been only 2 racetracks. I think it's going to be interesting to see how things goes in Melbourne on a different track than Jeddah. But generally, I think it's been a okay start, decent start. But as a team, we want to be fighting for bigger points here.
Well, George has just told us that they've made huge progress at Mercedes in the last few weeks. Are you happy and confident in the future in terms of what Alpine have got coming?
Yeah, I'm confident. I think the team definitely showed last year they were probably the best team in terms of development through the year. So there's a good understanding and correlation between the upgrades they're bringing on the racetrack. So it's just a matter of time until we see new parts coming on the car. And obviously there is also this part of understanding between the team and myself, really understanding what I need as a race car to extract the maximum of it. So it's been only 2 races. As I say, I think decent, but generally speaking, the overall performance hasn't been as good as we aim for. And we'll work to make that better over the next few races.
Do you welcome the 4 DRS zones that we've got at Albert Park this week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. We know, obviously, Melbourne is usually a very difficult track to overtake. So if you can increase, the overtaking opportunities, increase the racing, make it slightly more entertaining and a bit more racier on that track, I think that's definitely positive. But it's not guaranteed. We'll see in practice what we get. And I think most important is just to make sure we're fast enough to, fight for the points we want to.
All right, best of luck to you. Thank you, Pierre. Now, Nick, this is your first trip to Australia, I believe. Have you been shopping? Have you been surfing? Have you been driving supercars? What else was it? Tell me what you've been up to.
Socializing.
It is my first time out in Melbourne. It's been a good couple of days already. I got here quite early to just reset the timings a little bit. Still not sleeping without waking up, but we've been training a lot. We found a cool gym nearby in a kind of old chapel with a dog as a mascot of the gym. And usually I'm scared for dogs, but this was a very friendly, angry-looking dog, but very sweet. So we had a good time training.
Good. Now, let's throw it back to Saudi quickly, because you seem frustrated after the race. And given that you didn't get any running in FP3, was that frustration justified? What have you learnt about the car since the race?
I think generally we're in a position that we need to look at small kind of steps and positivity to encourage us forward and continue to try and close the gap towards the top 10. But yeah, after the race, I felt like there were good elements of the race. Like my last 8 laps were very competitive, but in traffic, I felt like I wasn't necessarily good enough, and especially at the restart when we were on the hards, it took me too long to kind of switch them on. So yeah, I was just critical about myself. I just didn't think I do a good enough job in those phases of the race. But just globally speaking, we've done 2 races, and I see and feel that I'm making little steps, and that is encouraging. And hopefully, this weekend we can, continue to move forward and fight for a point.
And do you feel that you've got your feet firmly under the table now at AlphaTauri? and are you getting on okay with Yuki as well?
Yeah, no, I mean the vibe in the team is really good, but we're competitive and we want to be further up the grid, and we obviously would have hoped and liked that we're a bit more ahead and in the fight of points, but hopefully due the course of the season we can get ourselves in that place.
All right, Nick, good luck this weekend. Thank you for that. Nico, welcome back to Melbourne. I feel that needs to be said. First time you've raced here since 2019. Are you pleased to be back?
Yeah, it's a great town, fantastic track here, the park atmosphere. I think I've always had pretty good runs here of races, a lot of points, so we look forward to get out there tomorrow, discover the slightly new layout now, more high speed, and yeah, happy to be here.
Well, have you tried the new layout in the simulator? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I did a brief couple of laps. It's definitely, much more flowing, more fast speed, a lot of medium speed corners, high speed corners, so feels pretty rapidly fast.
Now, Nico, the last time we had you in here was before the first race of the season. You're now 2 races in. How do you feel it's going?
It's going okay. It's still obviously very early doors. No result or point just yet, but I feel there's a lot of good progress being made over the first 2 races. Obviously, beginning of a season is such a steep learning curve for the team, but also for myself after the time away. So I feel pretty happy and confident that there's more good things ahead of us.
Has Gunter sworn at you yet?
No, he hasn't.
It's a badge of honour. All right, well, look, best of luck this weekend. Thank you to Nico. And Logan, your first trip to Australia as well. How are you finding it?
Yeah, it honestly reminds me a little bit of America, to be honest. Quite familiar in the feel of the city, to be honest. And yeah, it's always a place and track I've wanted to visit, so pretty excited to be here for the first time.
Any cool stuff you've been up to that you can share?
Cool stuff? I'm not sure. I mean, just honestly, just our I mean, I took a nice walk around the city just to check it out. Other than that, it's just been training and sort of getting acclimated to Melbourne.
What about the racetrack? Tell us how you've gone about learning Albert Park.
Too many laps on the sim, that's for sure. But it's honestly a track that I've driven on sims for however long since I was a kid. Just a track I've always looked forward to coming to. And we did a track walk yesterday to really get a lay of the land, and looks awesome. Tricky, but looking forward to taking it on.
Now, what element of Formula One have you enjoyed the most so far this year?
What haven't I? Well, I mean, it's hard to pick one. I've loved everything. I think honestly, just having the element of going against 19 of the best drivers in the world, and really challenging myself to step up and make something happen.
And what bit of the driving are you most pleased with? The qualifying seems to have done well. When you haven't cut the circuit, that is, as you did.
I wouldn't say I cut it, but.
Are you pleased with qualifying?
Yeah, I think Saudi was a really good step forward in terms of qualifying pace from Bahrain, even though nothing came of it. But I think that was super positive. I feel honestly super comfortable in the car. I feel like I've got my feet under the table, but there's still a lot to learn in the races. So trying to get on top of that. I've always been very comfortable with my qualifying pace coming from the previous series. So just trying to get on top of the race runs.
All right, Logan, thank you very much to you. Let's open this to the floor. Yes, first question, please.
David Croft, Sky Sports F1. As we've got a very nice mix of experience and youth, a couple of rookies, and Nico and George and Pierre with a bit more experience. This week, Stefano Domenicali said he might be in favour of changing the schedule, mixing things up a little bit and having a bit less practice on a Grand Prix weekend. So to you all, honestly, do you need 3 practice sessions on a racetrack each weekend?
George, you look like you're ready to go.
You look really keen, George.
I think no is the answer. I think obviously the more practice you do, the more up to speed you'll be, the more comfortable you'll be with the car. I don't think it's right that Formula One has 3 times the amount of practice that you have in F3 and F2 category. They should be the ones getting more practice, also because they're doing less races, but don't get to test that often. No practices would be too little. I wasn't in favour of the sprint races initially, but having done, how many have we done now? 6, 9 maybe in the 2 years. I really enjoy the sprint races, and having action on a Friday I think is vital for all of us, and also for the entertainment factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with George. Definitely, 3 is not needed as a driving point of view. It's always nice. You can work on like fine details on the car and really sort of try to nail that car balance for the weekend. But generally speaking, I think 1, 2 maximum is more than enough for us. So yeah, I kind of agree. And with sprint races, I think we've had different feedbacks. I think there's a lot of discussions on what to explore and how to increase the entertainment and sort of racing on that one. So no, I think it's good to always kind of question what we're doing and kind of looking at on how we can improve the format and just the whole format of the weekend in general.
What does the rookie think?
I echo Pierre and George's comments. The only thing I would say is that, you know, if you make a change, it will be the same for everybody. So I think in all junior series, we've been used to actually only do one free practice session. So I think we could do with less.
Nico?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a bit, personal opinion, preference. I think we have a good amount of practice now. Thinking back to what George said to junior series, I quite enjoyed it at the time, having only 30 minutes like an F2 and then get thrown into quali. So, yeah, I think it's a matter of personal, preference and opinion. So, yeah, we can discuss that for a long time probably.
Yeah, I think 3 is definitely a lot, especially coming from F2, where you just have to take risk a lot sooner than I currently have to. So as a rookie, I don't mind having 2 or 3, but going forward, I don't think 3 is necessary. Well, it is my favorite number, so I don't know.
Okay, so this has been the subject that's been coming around recently as well. Stefano Domenicali was at the MotoGP season opener in Portimao, and he was quoted on Portuguese television by saying he wants to reduce the amount of free practice time or cancel them altogether or make them have some form of meaning into the weekend. I don't agree with him in terms of the fact that not every session on the track has to be about points, because then you run the risk of the practice time not being practice anymore. It becomes another race. So my idea for the perfect format of a Formula 1 weekend is on Friday you have a 90-minute practice session. On Saturday morning you have a 45-minute practice session. Then you have the normal qualifying, and on Sunday you have the normal race. That means you cut the practice time in half, from 3 hours down to around about 2 hours, something like 15. So quite a big cut. And then we've got a good format for qualifying the race. And on the weekend where there's sprints, you have one practice of 90 minutes on a Friday, qualifying Saturday morning, sprint Sunday afternoon, race on Sunday. We don't need the amount of practice time we have. And I think we're going to see this weekend as well, with Friday looking to be a washout and Saturday morning, we're going to see that not much running is going to be done, because the drivers and the teams only have 4 sets of intermediate tyres, and they're going to need those for qualifying and possibly the race. So we're not going to have much practice time, which means Sunday's going to be a great race. That's my point, and that's how it's all going. This is going to be something we were talking about in the first practice session as well, with Tom Dillon and Nathan Richards as well. So join us for first practice at 2:15 a.m. British summer time for all of the action here. My thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you in about, I don't know, later today maybe, as well, for all the action. Thanks for your company. Bye-bye.